This is Foxboro's Fortress, your home for all the latest on the New England Revolution. Brought to you by Leading Lights, LLC. Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Foxboro's Fortress, your home for all the latest on the New England Revolution. I'm Cecil Kenny.
And I'm Raphael Babchuk. And today, we'll break down last Saturday's loss to NYCFC and this weekend's news heading into the break. Big thanks to our sponsor, Leading Lights LLC, for making this possible, who we'll talk about more later. But for now, let's jump on into the breakdown of our 2-1 loss to City.
Alright, let's get started. First and foremost, I want to apologize for my comments on Caleb Porter as a coach last time out. Severe lapse in judgment on my part, to be completely honest. And I now realize he is no longer qualified to coach this Revolution team, regardless of his previous success in MLS. The league has frankly moved on from coaches like him, like Curtin and Savarese. He's no longer really an MLS caliber coach. Where does he go from here? I don't know, but hopefully not with the Revs. Anyways, want to talk about the heavily rotated lineup going into this match at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, so we changed our formation for this game, and we played with a 4-3-3 formation. Brandon Bai came back into the lineup, and Eli Feingold went to the bench. Brandon Bai played that right back position for the game. And then, for the first time this season, Polster made his debut playing center mid. And then up top, we had Carlos Hill playing right wing. We had Urruti playing striker and Ganigo playing left wing. Will Sands stayed in that left back position. And we had Jackson Ewell in the center of our midfield.
I do want to pause you there. I think it could be still a 4-2-3-1 like we normally play. The Apple TV broadcast showed a 4-2-3-1 with Yusuf on the right, with Carlos Hill still down the middle, with Urruti up top, then obviously Polster and Ewell in the middle.
Which I do feel Carlos Hill and Yusuf were kind of flip-flopping on that right side.
Yeah,
I
do think Carlos was probably given, like normal, the freedom to move wherever he like. And so let's kind of dive into that real quick. Obviously, it was a 2-1 defeat, and although it shows a goal on the score sheet, we're looking at this. We still don't have a team goal. It was an own goal, and it was a pretty terrible own goal. If it wasn't for an own goal, we wouldn't have a goal because that ball served in was not making it to. I think it was Ganigo in the middle.
Yeah, it was Ganigo, who was getting in great position. So I want to go over the goals. We had Fernandez scoring in the 38th minute. And then we had Martinez score in the 68th minute. Our own goal came from Martins in the 26th minute from their defender. So what really happened during that own goal was it was a cross coming in from Brandon Bai. It was headed towards Ganigo, who was playing much better. We'll dive into that later. He was playing much better. It was really not going to make it, but in the end it was poked into their own net for an own goal. But if you look at our score sheet, and it says 1-0, but when you look at Revs goals, it's going to be 0. What do we call that? A donut.
We still call that a donut. It's terrible. Still no team goal. It's still no attacking prowess, like we said last time. There's nothing there.
Listen, we had some improvements, but it's still not what we want.
There was definitely some improvements. I do want to touch on that. Those improvements. Guys were getting into the area, and it just, our attack looks so much better.
I mean, how did we get that goal? It was at least an attempted cross into the area, which Ganigo was playing much better in.
Speaking of Ganigo, that's a really good point. He looked a lot better this game than he has in the past. A 5.5 FOPMOP score does not do him justice for what he was doing. He was making runs into the box. He was just looking a lot better than he had in previous matches.
Yeah, now that's speaking of Ganigo, yes, he played a little better, but we can't just excuse he wasn't amazing, right? He still had stuff that he had to do better on. He still had things he had to get rid of the ball sooner. I saw a bunch of chances. He just kind of held on to the ball, kind of ruined our attack. Speaking of another player I want to talk about, we had Urruti, who I said would start in the game, in my starting lineup, and he started. And what we really saw from him was not that much. He had one shot all game, which was blocked. He had a 6.6 rating on FOTMOB, and he played until he got subbed out in the 71st minute. This is not really what we're looking to see from our striker. And yes, we had a striker injury for Campana in the game before versus the Philadelphia Union, but I still want to see more. Like, I know he wanted to play, and he wanted to play well, but we still have to play. He still has to, play a little better. I want to talk about the goal that they scored after we were 1-0 up from that own goal.
Yeah, can I butt in real quick? Rudy, although I didn't want him starting because I think he's a very good bench striker, bench MLS veteran striker. Starting, I don't think that was good. He did not perform at all. He had all this confidence going in, and although I'm all for confidence, which I think is phenomenal, it's just really not. Confidence, although is very important, it's not the key to success. You also have to, act on it. And so, when we are still sitting here with 0 Revs goals as a team, it's bad. It is bad. And so, we're sitting here on, what's today? Monday the 17th. The Revs still do not have a goal this MLS season. Sure, it's only 4 matches. That's still 4 matches. Mm-hmm. It is bad.
Because of the own goal, we technically can't tie the record now for most games at MLS without a goal. But in my books, it is, because an own goal doesn't really count. And in my prediction for the game, in our last episode, I said we'd score a penalty, which kind of also doesn't count as a goal that we want to use because it would be a set piece, but still it wouldn't be a goal. This own goal in my book doesn't. Now I want to speak about the goal that they scored in the 38th minute from which Fernandez scored. So how the goal happened was they kind of got on the break, and Poster, yes, it was his first game of the season, but he was way out of position and he was kind of at fault from that goal. They passed down the field and then they scored and slotted it in the bottom left corner.
I wouldn't even say get on a break. They had a full-on counterattack from the other side of the field against us, and we couldn't stop it. It was bad the way it looked. And Polster was way out of position for it. It was just bad.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we can't continue to play like this because then they scored on the counter and then they made it 1-1 and then they ended up scoring in the 68th minute from a really great acrobatic finish. I can't fault that. That was a really good goal.
It was a beautiful finish. That goal was, oh my god, unreal.
It was very good.
Something I also want to talk about here is the corners and set pieces. I didn't see as much of the goal kick stuff as in previous games.
Apple TV Plus was kind of cutting it out because it was hard to watch. A few of the times they didn't even show it. They just panned in on a bunch of players.
It was too bad to watch. Yeah. Is what we're chalking it down to. But what we really want to talk about is the corners. You wanna?
Yeah, the last two. No, I think it was 3. The last 3 corners we had in the game, we were on their side of the field trying to score because we're down 2-1, right? First corner we take it short, which I never like taking a corner short. That's not something I really like to see.
Especially when you're down and you're trying to go fast.
I agree. Especially when that happens. And then the next corner was on the other side, the other corner flag, and Carlos Hill took the corner, and it was really poor. It was a very bad corner. I'm not sure I could deliver a better delivery, but it was still really bad for his standards. I mean, and then the next one, we finally got it. There was a few seconds left in the game, and then he does almost the same exact corner.
This time it attempts to get to some people, but it's just everyone made the same run in that one.
Yeah.
Still not good. It's progress, but at that time you don't have time for progress. You have time for winning and time to score.
Yeah, we need urgency.
Yeah, and after that they clear it and final whistle is blown and we lose 2-1 to New York.
You'd have to think if we had a better set piece in that corner or maybe a better delivery from Carlos Hill, this could have been different. We wouldn't have been talking about how bad the Revs are and talking about, wow, we escaped with a draw, but that's not what happened. Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, I do want to talk about it a little bit more, especially our statistics. So, ball possession, 54%, a lot better than before. But we lose in just about every other category. Expected goals, 1.15 for NYCFC to 0.46 for us.
That's actually not that bad for what we've done this season, considering in the stat line we have 1 shot on target, which is very poor.
Not for the season. For this game, 1 shot on target, you have that.
Yes, this game.
They had 4. That total shots, they had 10, we had 7.
Yeah, that's great and all, but we still can't say that just because a few of our stats are better than normal, we played a really good game. I mean, we didn't really play that good of a game. I mean, when you look at how we played, it was poor. My standout for the game, I liked how Will Sands played. I thought he brought a nice energy on the left-hand side, and he was getting back on defense, helping out up on offense, and I really liked how he was playing. I thought he played really well and kind of certified his spot in our starting lineup because I thought he played out of him, Brandon Bye, and then Eli Feingold, who came in that last few minutes. He was obviously the standout. I also want to talk about Jackson Ewell, who, in my opinion, ever since the start of the season, has just been kind of a blank spot for me. I mean, he really hasn't been doing anything amazing. He hasn't been really doing anything good. And it's almost like we're playing with 10 players out there. Not that he's playing so bad, but it's like he really has to improve. I mean, 0 shots during the game, which, yeah, sometimes that happens during players, but he hasn't really been as impactful as we wanted him to play. But as far as my standout, I thought Will Sands was playing really great the entire game.
I do want to ask you, who would you rather have taken those last 3 corners, Jackson Ewell or Carlos Hill?
Even though Carlos Hill and his deliveries weren't as good as I wanted to, it definitely Carlos Hill, because he's proven, in my opinion, he's the best Revs player ever.
Really?
Yeah, ever.
That's a really hot take. And Taylor Twellman, like a lot of those guys, they are very good players. I think I put Cappy in my top 3. He's not my number 1.
All right. We can talk about that maybe next episode. But I do think Carlos Hill would. I would still want him to take that. But, yeah, my standout was definitely Will Sands. Who was your standout of the game, Cecil?
I think my standout is Mamadou Fofana and Brand Ceballos. 2 players, but I think they performed excellent this game. Like, Mamadou Fofana looked very calm on the ball, and then Brand Ceballos has just been incredible for us this season. Both have been amazing signings for us this season, and I just really think those guys have been really good. And those are guys that I have of my man of the match for us.
Yeah, I agree. They both have been playing really well. I think there are there are defenders we can rely on and having a good performance almost every game, which is something that we've kind of been missing from our defenders the last few seasons. So that's at least something positive to take a look at from the game. I also want to say Ivičić, at the start of the season, I didn't really rate him as a goalkeeper, but now I think he's kind of improved, and I like the way that he's playing. He's making great saves, and yes, some things he could have done a little better, but I think it's much improvement from last season, when last season I really couldn't say if he was better than Ravas, but right now I can definitely go out and say that he is, and I think he will continue to improve because his form right now I think is pretty good.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. He went from last year letting up the most goals in MLS history for a goalkeeper.
Did he actually? That's an insane stat.
It's an incredible stat. And now I wouldn't say he's one of the best keepers, but he's a solid keeper. So he's a good bridge keeper. And so I think once we find our guy, the transition's going to be not seamless, but it's going to be better than it was between Petrovic and Ivičić. Similar, but not the same as Turner to Petrovic, where that transition was phenomenal. Because now both of those guys are in
Europe.
In Europe, Premier League clubs.
Premier League clubs playing in Europe. Obviously, I felt hurt when Petrovic left because I really liked him, and then he just left for Chelsea. Now he's not even playing for Chelsea because Chelsea signs 20 players and then decides to only use 3 of them, which is a great marketing strategy from Todd Bowley. But on other notes, much improvement needed, but improvement was seen during the game.
Definitely. Do you want to talk about the subs used to start?
Yeah, so the subs used, we had Langoni come in for Rudy in the 71st minute. Eli Feingold went in for Will Sands in the 75th minute. Buck came on for Polster in the 76th. And Diaz came on for Yusuf on the 86th. So in terms of subs, I didn't really see that big of an impact, which I thought could have been way better. I mean, in terms of subs, I know we don't have that many options on the bench, but I think our subs have to bring a bigger impact to the game. Because, we had to do something after we were down goals. And yes, Caleb Porter made some substitutions. Were they the right ones? I don't think so.
Yeah, our bench is just not what we want it to be. Noel Buck hasn't stood out this season. Langoni, I think our attack's been better with him on the field, but he himself hasn't done enough attacking-wise.
I agree.
Luis
because
Diaz,
maybe Langoni takes away from the defenders.
Yeah.
But in total, Langoni still has to be better.
Yeah, back to my Diaz point. He has, in the games he's played in, he's done better. Just like right off the bench, just like he's provided this spark. And so I think that was the rationale behind subbing him in the 86th, which I like. But he didn't do anything this game. which just was not good. And I think it's because of the small field.
Yeah, how do you think that impacted the game? Because for viewers who do not know, NYCFC Stadium is smaller than other stadiums. Obviously, we're playing in It's in Yankee Stadium. So yeah, how do you think that impacted the players?
I think the players definitely felt it. Obviously, it's, like you mentioned, small stadium, so it definitely compromised our wide areas to talk about. Our wingers were not fully equipped.
Yeah, they weren't as prolific.
No, definitely not.
Not that they've been prolific all season, but it definitely impacted the game.
Yeah, I think that's what led Luis Diaz not to do much this game.
Yeah, yes, he wasn't subbed in for he didn't play that long, but still we've seen more of him throughout the season and not as much this game, which I think the field impacted.
Yeah. You want to talk about our predictions?
Yes, I would love to talk about our predictions. So you want to go first?
Okay, so as I mentioned in the previous episode, Julian Fernandez, he was my honorable mention guy. I didn't really know what to expect about him, but he was also the guy who had the goal to tie the game, and the assist came from Hannes Wolf, who was my guy to talk about. You talked about Jonathan Shore and Micha Ilinic.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about them?
They didn't, obviously my predictions didn't pan out, but I have to say for that goal that Julian Fernandez scored, it was a very good finish right in the bottom left corner, and again, it was a great assist off the counter. Yes, Polster could have done better, but all in all, that was a really good goal.
Yeah. Obviously, like you said, Jonathan Shore and Micha Ilinic didn't really perform this game. Something I do want to talk about is Carvalho. We made the prediction that he would start.
Yeah, together. This was a together prediction.
Yes. And it was him starting at left back over O'Toole. I'm gonna take full responsibility for cursing him and having him leave.
Yeah, it was our take, but Cecil is gonna take the responsibility.
I'll take the responsibility. I'll take the fall. He left in the 29th, and it's all gonna be my fault because I cursed him, and now he's injured. I apologize for that.
So what you're saying is every person you think who hasn't started that you say is gonna start, they're just gonna get injured if they do.
Yes, 100%.
All right.
Anyways, Alonso Martinez, 3 goals through 4 games. That prediction is looking great. We both talked about him. He had a goal, and it was that beautiful goal, sort of assisted by Keaton Parks, who I think we both talked about.
Yeah, it was a great acrobatic finish.
It was beautiful.
Nothing you can really do from Ivicic. I mean, it was great power into the shot, and it was really good.
Yeah, it was. He would have had to made a double save, and
yeah,
as a goalkeeper myself, that is very hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't really fault him for that. Alonso Martinez, obviously, like we mentioned, a great player. Our game predictions, though, that was just not good.
Yeah.
Along with our lineup.
I said the game would be 1-0 with a goal in the 63rd minute from Carlos Hill, and we would win. And you said it would be 0-0.
Yeah. Clearly very far off from my prediction. You did.
Technically, we did not score a goal. If it's talking about our players, technically we did score a donut.
So we both have like a similar prediction for that. In a way, it wasn't very good. It didn't work out there. We'll try our best next week when we go to the Red Bull game. But
yeah, which we will be there. I want to make a bet with you though. I think the first person who gets the score prediction correct gets a donut.
Ooh, good idea.
That's a good one.
I do want a donut right now.
Yeah.
Also, our lineup predictions with Feingold and Langoni on the bench didn't really work out.
Yeah, I said that Will Sands would stay in the lineup, but I thought Brandon Bye would stay on the bench. Instead, Brandon Bye came in for Eli Feingold, and obviously we kind of had a shift in formation.
And then you also said Arudi would start. I'll give you credit for that.
Yeah.
Now we're going to pause and hear from our sponsor, Leading Lights LLC. Unlock the power of your platform data with Leading Lights, experts in transforming raw numbers into compelling benchmarks. Leading Lights helps a variety of companies turn insights into engaging stories that drive growth. Elevate your brand with data-driven content that captivates your audience and sets you apart from the competition with Leading Lights. Visit their website at leadinglights.io to see how you can transform your platform data. Hey everyone, welcome back. This is still Foxboro's Fortress, your podcast for all the latest on the New England Revolution. Again, I'm Cecil Kenny.
And I'm Raphael Babchuk. And we want to start off with a few national team call-ups. Obviously, it will be international break this next week, so we do not have a game this Saturday, but we will still having an episode. So make sure you tune into that. So, first up we have Alassane Youssef, who was called up to the Nigeria national team for World Cup qualifier games. He's playing Rwanda on the 21st and Zimbabwe on the 25th. Obviously, this is just 4 games until he plays New York Red Bull with obviously when he arrives back with us. So that could be a problem with fitness, but we'll have to see. We also have Ganago, who was called up to the Cameroon national team for the World Cup qualifier, playing 2 games as well. So he also might not be available for the Red Bull match. Another call-up, we have Fofana, who's obviously been a standout. He's called up for the Mali national team, and he's also going to play a game, but he should be able to make it to our match. And then lastly, with Eli Feingold, who was called up to the U21 national team for a Cyprus match, but then he was taken off the list later, so we are wondering why he got taken off. Do you have any insights why he was taken off that list?
I'm not totally sure. There could be something with the Revs involved there. They don't want him playing too much. But that's really interesting. It's the U21 national team for Israel against a friendly against Cyprus. So it's not the biggest deal. And so that's an interesting one to look at. Just a note, our weekly podcast is getting moved to Mondays, and it will be on next week. We'll be diving into a look ahead for the Red Bull game and also the international games up to that point for the Revs. Continuing on, while we don't have a game this coming weekend, we're going to talk about some MLS news. What you got for me?
So, first things first, we're talking about disciplinary of Inter Miami. Across 4 games, they have 12 yellow cards, 3 reds. That's 15 in total. That's 3.7 cards per match. That is very aggressive. And I know it's a change of manager. Now it is Javier Mascherano playing. I mean, not playing. He is currently the manager, and he's playing much more physical. So, Cecil, how do you feel about that?
It's going to be a problem for the Revs. We're not a very physical team. And so when we play them 2 times this year, that could end up being a problem for us.
Yeah, that could definitely impact us.
I don't see any reason why they won't break a record for most cards a season with the pace they're going at. With just about 4 cards per match is bad. It's really bad. What else we got?
We have, I also want to just talk about how their, Lionel Messi was not included in the Argentina squad for these upcoming World Cup qualifiers, obviously due to an injury. But this is obviously big news because they're going in, they're playing Uruguay and Brazil. But they should be able to be all right because obviously Argentina are the former World Cup champions.
I'm kind of surprised. Is it an injury? Because I know he played the other day against Atlanta.
Yeah, that's what I would probably think it was an injury because I don't think there would be any other reason why Lionel Scaloni would leave him off that team sheet.
It's really weird. It might just be because of he's just kind of getting back fit, and they don't really need him being, Argentina, and all those great players. Something else I want to talk about is table surprises. So Vancouver, let's start with them. They are currently the only team in MLS who has won all of their games. Really impressive and just not something we expected out of Vancouver.
Yeah,
obviously there's other undefeated MLS teams, but this is especially crazy because it's 4 out of 4 wins, the direct opposite of the Revs, except for that draw. So it's really interesting.
But yeah, and when you really look at their team, they don't have one standout player. It's kind of a whole team performing incredibly well. I mean, they're playing really well. Obviously, as you said, they're the only 4-win team in the MLS. They're playing really great. Obviously, I haven't seen as much of them as I've seen the Revs, but they've played really good, entertaining football to watch, and that's really key important of how you play good.
Yeah, I also want to talk about Atlanta. They spent big in transfer window. They brought back Miguel Almiron. They have not been good this season. Do you have any idea why that would be?
I mean, I know they lost. They did lose a couple players earlier in the window, but it shouldn't really excuse their performance that they're really playing. They had, I think it was Alvarado. No, excuse me, it was actually Thiago Almada. He was a key player in their team last season. Yes, they didn't perform all that well last season too, but they brought in Miguel Almiron from Newcastle United, and you'd kind of think they'd be playing a little better, and that's really not the case.
Yeah, they also brought in Emmanuel Latte-La for an MLS record signing. And
how much was it?
It was like 15 plus million. It was
Wow.
a lot. And he has definitely shown out for them. 4 matches, 3 goals. That's good. And then they brought in Alexei Miranchuk from Atalanta. Last season. He's not doing incredible, but he's not doing bad by any means. And so it's really weird to see, like, why are they not performing? And I think it just might be, like, a gelling issue, like how the Revs aren't really...
I agree. When you look about the teams that they played Montreal, who they got a 3-2 victory in. They kind of squeezed that one out. Not that too good of a performance. They scored in the 85th minute to take that game. And then they lost to Charlotte FC 2-0, which... is understandable. Obviously, Charlotte FC now have Wilfred Zaha, who's a key player.
Yeah, and they also have Lyle Abada, Israel national team member, I believe. And he's a very good player.
Yeah, and then they played New York Red Bulls, who was our New England Revolution's next opponent. They tied them 0-0, and then they lost to Messi's Inter Miami 2-1. So it's not the easiest of schedules, but you do think they'd get a few more points.
Yeah, I would have expected Atlanta to get at least another 2 points. I would have expected them to get the win out of Red Bull, and I would have expected them to have at least a point out of Charlotte. I know they're a very good team.
Yeah.
Inter Miami, I can kind of understand, and then they got the result they wanted against
even
Montreal.
if Inter Miami aren't really playing at their best, they have Lionel Messi.
Yeah, it's
hard to count them out at really any time that he's on the field. And you count out they have Luis Suarez. It's a very good side.
Yeah, like they barely got that win yesterday.
Yeah.
Fafa Picault scoring in the 89th minute.
So they're right now top of the East, but I still don't think they've been playing necessarily that well. I think they had a change of manager, and the reason why is because Inter Miami underperformed in the playoffs, which I get is understandable, but I don't think firing your coach is really, because they won the Supporter Shield last season.
Yeah.
For a best record, and so that was obviously really good. So then they brought in this new coach. He's obviously playing more physical. They have 15 cards total, and they're not really playing as dominant as they were last season.
Like, they're definitely doing good. They're still undefeated, don't get me wrong, but they're just not looking like they did last year. They're looking too physical, and they're squeezing out these victories, and it's just not good. Something else I want to talk about is Nashville having 7 points. They obviously got 1 from the game against us. But they beat Nashville beat Philadelphia yesterday, which is a shock for many. And they also beat the Portland Timbers, who aren't a bad team.
Yeah, but they're not playing too well.
Yeah, and then their only loss coming so far to the Red Bull. And Red Bull, we play next, as you mentioned.
Yep.
They've got some very good players. We'll talk about this more next episode, but Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting, Emil Forsberg. They
have players who were all around Europe. I mean, Emil Forsberg was on Leipzig. I mean, you have Eric Choupo-Moting who was on PSG, Bayern Munich.
Yeah, so they've
had experience.
They've got some very good players, and so although Hani Mukhtar still 29, but just hasn't been at his MVP caliber level, even if he hasn't been incredible, they brought in a guy named Kazem. Hopefully I said that right. And then Sam Sturridge, they brought him last year. He's been great. And so these guys, they've kind of like, and then they also have the former U.S. interim manager, B.J. Callahan. And so they're looking really good. Not
great, but good.
And so but the reason the Revs drew to them early on is because they brought in these guys late. But they didn't, especially I think Kazem, I don't think he played much against the Revs. And so they didn't have that gelling time.
Yeah, I agree. Another team I want to talk about is the LA Galaxy, who they won the league last season, right? They won the playoffs. They lifted the trophy, and you'd think they'd have a great start to the season.
They did have some injuries.
Obviously Ricky Puig is out,
and then Paintsil, he's been out. They still have only 1 point. They tied the Portland Timbers yesterday because of an 81st minute goal.
They don't just only have
Christian
1 point. They have a -6 goal differential.
Yeah, they're kind of trying to play all through Gabriel Peck, who has been very good, don't get me wrong. But, just kind of with the Revs, you can't just play through Calasil. Yeah. It's not an option. And so, playing all through one player is just really not what you can't, that's not working.
If it wasn't for which Ramirez scored in the 81st minute in their last game versus Portland Timbers, if it wasn't for that, they would have lost that game and had 0 points. So they have to do better because they're the champions, right? You have to uphold your name. It's like a team. It's like Man City, right, in the EPL. Yes, they've not had the best season after they won the league last season, but they're not last place in the Premier League, right? LA Galaxy are last place. Yes, they've dealt with some injuries, but it shouldn't be that much of an excuse to say, oh, wow, the season starts 4 games in, worst team.
Yeah, so I like that point. Last point of this podcast is San Diego. So, obviously, they're the newest team to MLS. They've been looking good. I say that, comparatively, they look a lot like, not in play style, maybe, but just straight points.
Yeah, and the results.
They're looking a lot like St. Louis 2 years ago. St. Louis 2 years ago, 2023, they were a new team in MLS, but they won the West, and so maybe San Diego doesn't win the West, but they're gonna come very close. As it stands right now, this could all change. Remember, only 4 games in, but they're resembling St. Louis 2 years ago, who won the West.
Yeah. I really like that comparison there because it is a new team and they're playing very well. And when it comes to the other teams in the West who haven't been playing as good, especially the LA Galaxy, St. Louis has been, obviously they've been doing good, but what we're talking about is San Diego FC, who's really shown that they're capable in this league.
Yeah, and I think, so St. Louis didn't have these big name signings that they signed. They brought in Marcus Ingvartsen and Hepe Terskanaskov from FC Nordisland, who's their partner club over in the Danish Super League. They also brought in Andres Dreyer, who's a very good winger, still only 26. And the fact that they got him to come over here to MLS is very impressive.
Yeah, but it shows in the results. I mean, they've been playing really well.
It's definitely showing in the results. They also have U.S. international Luca De La Torre on loan. They brought in Thomas Angel, who has 2 assists on the year from LAFC. And then they brought in some MLS guys, Anibal Godoy and Christopher McVeigh. Paddy McNair they brought over from Middlesbrough, I believe.
Yeah, so all in all, they're looking really well. And one last thing I want to talk about is really our last thoughts, is that New England Revolution showed they were playing better, but we still need to play even more better. We have to play more attack, right? We can't just focus on our great defense. We have to have more attacking prowess, and we can't just, settle on our defenders to do all the work, because that's really all we're praising about is our defense.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, that's going to end it for today. Again, next episode, we're going to talk about our look ahead into the Red Bull match and also how the Revs players are doing in their international games, and also more on Caleb Porter as a coach and how he's been doing and what our thoughts are moving forward on him. Again, follow us on X at NEPodcastingNet. Thank you again to Leading Lights LLC for making this possible, and the next episode will be coming Monday morning.
All right, we'll see you guys then. Thank you for listening.
Bye.